Everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. It's Sunday. And how do you know it's Sunday? You know it because you turn on your podcast and it's Matt Halatic from Men's Journal who's with us each and every Sunday. Man, Matt, we are approaching. We're getting close now. Instead of months, we're just literally a couple of weeks, getting close to days to minicamp. It seems like our long lost wandering in the desert is almost over. We're going to get some real football back.
We are, and I think this is, some of the most fun times of the year for football because hope springs eternal. And I think that, obviously not all 32 teams are created equal and going into a season. There's going to be teams that are expected to be championship contenders or playoff contenders, and others that are rebuilding or young teams that are growing or whatnot. But at this point in the summer, and actually a couple weeks from now, when it's late July and August, everyone has hope. Everyone has hope, that they can get. It's going to be that season where things break their way and they make a run or do some things that the fan base is excited about. So I think that's what makes this part of the summer so special.
Matt, I want to get into the Raiders in a minute, but before we do, I was talking to an NFL executive last night, and I'll share privately offline with you why, because I think you'll find it fascinating. But we're just visiting as friends, not a Raider executive, just another one. And he was talking about those 6 weeks from training camp, from mandatory minicamp to training camp, are the worst in the NFL. And I said, how is it worst? You're getting away from the game. He says, no, no, no. He goes, because you got all your coaches. He goes, they're still in the building a little bit, but none of your players are. He goes, and you're wondering, what are they doing? What are they up to? He goes, and and he said, I don't even mean nefariously. I don't think they're out there breaking the law. He goes, but he goes, like yesterday, because I talked to him on Saturday. He goes, like yesterday. He goes, you're worried about 4th of July. Is somebody going to blow a finger off, a hand out? He goes, there's just so many things you worry about. I thought that was fascinating because I never really thought about it. But all the different phases of the NFL, and he literally called this phase right now the terrifying phase. I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, when you were going through that just now, I had a feeling that that's where you were going because I was going to say that this is the time of the year where teams really don't have any kind of control or knowledge on where their
No.
players are. And that can be scary because, like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean that guys are breaking the law or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing legally. But you're away from them. You don't know what they're doing in their free time. You don't know. How much are they, someone going to be working out or doing something and get hurt? Is someone going to be, like you said, 4th of July, going to be, I don't know, with fireworks or some type of thing and hurt themselves? It's obviously happened with Jason Pierre-Paul in 2015 with the Giants, and there's been other guys too who have done, things like that, just accidental stuff. So yeah, it's tough for executives and for the coaches because they want to get this part over with and they want to get down to um, down to business. And this is a tough time when they're struggling, kind of unsure of where everyone is.
Matt, earlier in the week, I talked about the Raiders and the fight for relevance, the fight for respect. And I said something that I was a little bit surprised at the response, and I'd like your opinion of it. I talked about when you're a franchise whose motto is just win, and you really haven't for 20 years, that's on the franchise. Now, I think Mark Davis has evolved into a very good owner. I mean, the guy's given the franchise and hadn't been mentored on how to do it. He had to learn on the run, and he's never been cheap. He's thrown money at everything. He's tried to make it. I really respect how he has matured as an owner. So I'm not slamming Mark in the least bit. But I talked about they got to get to 9 wins because your motto is just win. You can't keep finishing under 500. But I think fans have to be realistic. They're not a Super Bowl team. Maybe they get to 10 and sneak in, but they're still not a Super Bowl contender. But they got to get to 9 wins, in my opinion, because they need to start getting the respect of their fans back. I hear and get so many emails. Man, I've been a fan my whole life. My dad was a fan, but man, my kids aren't as interested because we don't win. To me, I don't have a problem with Raider fan that paid huge money for PSLs and sells tickets because the team isn't winning or bad coaching or player mistakes. But I think it's just not getting to 500 because that's what your franchise says. I think it's also earning the respect of your fans back. Am I wrong, Matt, or have I overstated it, understated it? Love your thoughts.
No, and I think, listen, I'm not there on the ground the way you are day to day or interacting with fans the way you are, but I know some Raider fans out this way, and I know just the reputation kind of the Raiders have had and the way that what it, they've developed over the years. And I think that it's just one of those things where they haven't had that respect around the NFL, or they haven't had that respect from opposing fan bases or even their own fan bases, because there haven't been the motto's just win, baby, but the expectations of winning haven't been there. They haven't won consistently. They've had some one-off seasons where they've played well and they've made the playoffs or things like that, but they haven't had that consistent base of winning. And I think that until that happens, you're going to feel like you need to earn the respect of others, and you need to earn the respect of your own fans, because the fans don't have the expectation of, if a team goes on a 2-game losing streak, but they're a team that wins a lot, you're annoyed as a fan, but you're saying, all right, we'll snap out of it. We'll get something done. We'll turn it around. But if the Raiders you lose 2 games in a row, it's, oh, here we go again. It's going to be another one of those seasons, another, something where we keep losing games, and you're expecting that other shoe to drop at all times. And I think that that's what they have to recover from. And I think they've done a good job setting themselves up to do that this offseason. But now is the hard part. You got to follow through.
I agree. Matt, I want to turn to an interesting thing. Nobody is doing non-Steeler things better this season than the Steelers. And I mean, you look at they go out, they're making the big trades, they're signing the big free agent names. Are you a little bit surprised? Do you think it's a sign of them being more aggressive? That's what I think. But some are saying it's a sign of them being more panicked. I don't think it's the panic. I think it's just being more aggressive. But I'd love your thought on the Steelman.
Well, the Rodgers move, especially, even though they did wait it out for him, and they kind of just didn't necessarily, they kind of called his bluff, and that, like, listen, we're the one place where you're going to play next year if you want to play. That was aggression, I think. I mean, it was an atypical Steelers move. But I think when you look at what they've done the last few years, they're always in the playoffs, always in the mix, but they kind of haven't had a quarterback that can maybe push them a little further. So they want to see if he is going to do it this year. I don't think it's desperation necessarily. Or anything like that. I think it's a little bit more aggressiveness. I think they have to realize, hey, again, like I just said, they're in the playoffs almost every year. They're in the mix every year, but they haven't really been a threat in the AFC in several years. They're a team that you expect to be in the hunt. You're not surprised when they're one of the wild card teams and they're playing in January, but you really don't think of them as a team that can maybe win a game. But even they haven't been able to do the last couple of years. You just think of them as one of the teams that fills out the end of that postseason roster. And I think that that's unacceptable for the Steelers ultimately, because of the tradition they've set for themselves, the standard. So I think they're trying to get back to that, and this might be their way of doing it, by being a little more aggressive and doing things a little bit outside of the box from the Steeler way.
I was with some Shin and I were with some Cleveland Browns season ticket holders recently in the last week, and for the people that aren't from the Midwest, they don't understand. But when you talk about states that are football powerhouses, you think of Texas, you think of Ohio, you think of Florida, you think of California, and for Ohio to be that good of a high school football factory, and they are a factory, when you look at all their college teams, and that they're a juggernaut in college. And then you look at how poorly, I mean, Cleveland, if they were arrested for being an NFL franchise, there's not enough evidence to convict them. Cincinnati is just, they're their own worst enemy. My question to you is it shocking how bad pro football is in the state of Ohio? I mean, you've got the Hall of Fame there, all of it. Is it not shocking to you? It almost seems by birthright somebody in Ohio would be a good pro franchise, and you can point to both of them and definitely question how both of them are run.
I always think one of the funniest and most fascinating dichotomies to me, and there's a lot of people that fit in this category, and you will know, are the people from Ohio who are Ohio State football fans and Cleveland Browns fans. Because on Saturdays, they root for one of the best teams in the country year in and year out. Obviously, just won a national championship last year, and they're always good. And then on Sundays, they root for the Browns. And it's like, it's got to be like such a drop off. And I'm off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of a state in the country, another area where there's that big of a drop off. Because some of the other places with powerhouse teams, Alabama, there's no pro team in Alabama. I'm sure people are professional NFL fans, but yeah, maybe like, I don't know, Notre Dame and like the Colts, although the Colts aren't that bad, and the Bears, something like that, But the Browns and Ohio State, I think, is the sharpest, split there. And yeah, the Bengals have been better the last few years. Obviously, in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, they have some premium talent. But as we've seen, they can't get out of their own way with finding the money to spend on the right guys, or making sure their players are taken care of and compensated. And it seems like every offseason there's an issue with somebody's unhappy about a contract. They had Trey Hendrickson, who was their best pass rusher, who was having contract disputes with the team, and then they drafted a pass rusher in Shamar Stewart, who had trouble reaching his rookie contract with the team. And it's just, I do feel for the people of Ohio who are huge football fans, and they're always kind of dealing with this. Again, the Bengals are in a better spot than the Browns. They've been in a better spot than the Browns the last few years, but they have their own issues. And then you get to the Browns, who just, it did look like a couple of years ago they might have been turning a corner, because they had, I think, 2 playoff appearances in like a 3-year span or something like that, or a 4-year span maybe. So they had some talent. So it wasn't like they were, devoid of talent like they had been in the past. But then, the Deshaun Watson contract is a disaster, and then everything kind of falls apart last year, and they're one of the worst teams in the NFL again, and now they're kind of back to square one, it seems like. So I don't know. It's a rough time out there for the folks in Ohio.
Agree with you. All right, I want to switch gears now because I told you we're going to talk about the NFC East today. And then next week we're going to talk about the rest of the NFC, the other 3. But so let's just start in the East, where you've got the Eagles, the Giants, the Commanders, Giants, Commanders, and Cowboys. So let's talk about them. I mean, I think the Eagles are the best team in football. To be the man, you got to beat the man. There's nothing that on that team that is even remotely told me that they can't be looked at. I think if there's one team that I think matches up with them really well, I like the Rams matchup with them. I think the Rams matchup really, I think that is a matchup that the Eagles don't want. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of teams that match up good with them. I think they're clearly the cream of the NFC East, and to me, they're the cream of the NFC. Your thoughts, agree or disagree? And listen, we're hitting you right in the stomach because you're a
And
diehard blue and red guy. You're a Giants guy, but give me your thoughts.
I would agree. I think that they are, again, the favorites in the NFC, and I think they have to be the Super Bowl favorites again until proven otherwise. The schedule is tougher this year. The NFC crossovers are against the AFC West, So that they're going to get the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Chargers and Raiders in a crossover, um, and then the NFC. Trying to think of I think it's the NFC North and the NFC East play each other this year. So they're going to have to play the Packers, and they're going to play the Lions, and an improved Bears team and a Vikings team that's always in the hunt. So it's a tough schedule, but they're built to handle it. And listen, we know, even though the Chiefs just did it, repeating's tough, but I think the Eagles have a great chance. At the very least, they're going to snap this very weird streak that the NFC East has, where there hasn't been a repeat divisional winner since 2004. The Eagles won a division 4 years in a row from '01 to '04, and that's the last time there's been a repeat winner. It's been, alternating since then. They're going to break that streak this year. They're going to win a division. They're going to be the NFC favorite again. But to beat, to win, to get out of the NFC, you're going to have to go through Philadelphia. It's going to be tough.
Right. Now, next team to me is the Washington Commanders. I think they're coming. My only concern with them, and it's not a concern of character or talent, is Jaden Daniels plays. And listen, you want your guys playing with reckless abandon for their body. Okay, so this is, you may hear me talk about guys who don't do it and being critical, and then you're going to wonder, why is Hondo being critical of Jaden Daniels? He's not big. I've stood next to him. He is so talented. He has a heart like a lion. But the problem is, he avoided, like Barry Sanders, taking that huge smack, although, boy, he got some big hits last year. I've said if he survives the first 3 years, then God bless him. But my only knock on him coming out from everyone in the draft was he just plays in a way that in the NFL he's going to get hurt. If he can temper that or somehow not get hurt, I think they're one or two players away from taking the next step. But I think they're legit. I love the Commanders. I love Jaden. I don't like the way he plays because I don't think it's a long-term play in the NFL. I'm not rooting against him because he's a great kid. I'm just giving fair analytical thought.
Sure, and I think that the other thing that stands out to me for those guys is now you're one of the hunted. You go from being a little bit under the radar. No one expected them to be good last year. And then as the year went on, I think it was pretty evident that they were talented and how good Jaden Daniels was. But still, now you're entering a season, coming off an off season where you're one of the hunted. You're expected to be a contender. How do they handle that prosperity? How do they handle that success? That's been an issue with the Commanders for a long time. We feel like that they've really transformed that franchise by having Daniel Snyder sell, new GM, new head coach, new quarterback. How do they handle this next step? Because they are expected to be the second in line in the East and to potentially challenge the Eagles for that NFC East championship, as in addition to the NFC title as well. So how will they go about their business? To me, that's going to be an interesting one because they have a lot of talent. I think if that defense can hold up again, they could be a factor again.
I want to talk about Dallas. They are not only a legacy team in the NFL because of their size and they're known around the world. They're one of a couple of franchises that are bigger than the league. And I'm not a Dallas fan in the least bit. But I'm also smart enough to know the NFL is better when Dallas is better. They have become an embarrassment. I don't think that they're going to get to being relative until there are some serious changes there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I have them possibly third, and I say possibly third in the NFC East because I do think the Giants are better. I don't think that they're a playoff team at all. I just think they're a little bit better, and I just have zero faith in Dallas. Where am I wrong?
I would put them third, definitely going into the season, and I think that they have the talent there, the top end talent to maybe make the playoffs. I'm just a little concerned. I'm still skeptical about Brian Schottenheimer as a head coach there. I did like the staff he put together, and I did
I
like
did
some
too.
of the moves they made. I thought that going and getting George Pickens, they needed that second receiver with CeeDee Lamb. I still think that Dak Prescott's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL when he's healthy. I'm not saying top five good, but back end of that top 10, he can be there, or 10 to 12 definitely. Um, so I do think there's some hope there, but I believe if the problem with Dallas is it's been the same thing every year. Even the years where they've been good, three straight 12-win seasons from 2021 to 2023, three playoff berths. They only won one postseason game, so you're constantly feeling like they're gonna fall on their face when it matters. Um, And then you get the people talking about, are they more style and substance with Jerry Jones and the flash and the brand and all that stuff, uh, compared to the lack of postseason success. But I do think there'll be a tough out, and I think there's potential there. But I feel like it's very much, you're gonna have to prove to me that it's different this time around.
Hmm. Let's talk about the G-men. I have not been impressed with them. I especially at the head coaching position, I've not been super impressed with them. I do think that they got better this offseason. I don't think it's excrementally better. I mean, I excrementally better. I don't think that they're going to exponentially better. Jeez, oh Pete. I don't think they're going to get into the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to even get above 500, but I think they're making progress. What's your thought of the quarterback situation? What do you think of the progress? And then here's where I'm going with this. If you're going to replace guys, who are they going to replace them with? Who's going to be better? Give me your honest thoughts on the G-men because I think they could be better than Dallas. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. And I agree with you. I don't like the hire of the head coach in Dallas because when you're a legacy team, you don't go get a first time coach to learn how to coach on the job. If you were Carolina, New Orleans, or any number of teams, I would have said this was a great head coaching hire. Not when you're Dallas, but a ton of respect for the staff he put together. And it doesn't mean he won't be a good coach, it's just too high of a risk. But when you look at the G men, what are your thoughts on the G men, man?
It's funny because, like you said, I agree. I think they improved their roster. I think that their offseason moves on paper, I liked a lot of them. But the issue is you're going into year four with the regime that won 9 games surprisingly and made the playoffs in year one and has won nine regular season games combined in the next 2 years. So they're on thin ice. The head coach, especially. The schedule is rugged. I mean, like we said with the Eagles, the NFC East in general, all four of those teams are going to play a tough schedule because of who their crossover opponents are. And when the Giants are coming into that as the least talented team in the division, it makes it even tougher. I think they got better defensive. I think defensively, there's the potential there for their defense to be a legitimate strength, like to be one in the upper top 10 of the league defensively if things break right. They have talent there. They have Dexter Lawrence, they have Brian Burns, they have Abdul Carter, who I love that pick. They have some solid inside linebackers with McFadden and Okereke as long as they're healthy. They added in the secondary, so I think there's the potential for the defense to be good. The issue is offensively. Offensively has been the Giants' problem since it's been a decade now. They've been bad offensively, at least, um, with multiple quarterbacks and coordinators and head coaches. Uh, and I think that Russell Wilson is still better than Daniel Jones, but I don't think but it's not Russell Wilson from 2019 that you're getting, so you have to temper your expectations. Um, but to me, I think that this season comes down to, and the future of this regime comes down to Jackson Dart. Because if the Giants start 2-8 again, let's say, and they make a quarterback change. If the head coach isn't fired at 2-8, but let's say that he's not, and they make a quarterback change, and they win 3 or 4 of their last 7 games with Jackson Dart playing pretty well. The overall record's not going to be good, but you show that the guy that you traded back into the first round for might be the answer. So that might be enough to save your coaching staff and your GM for another year. So to me, I think that Jackson Dart is the focus of this Giants season. What he shows, barring a really surprising run by Russell Wilson where he plays well and they're in the playoff contention and Dart doesn't get off the bench. What Dart shows is going to be how this year is judged ultimately.
All right. Do you agree with me? I do think they're better. I mean, you added two legitimate. You added the man that many thought was the second best quarterback, which we've reported for months. You got Jackson Dart, and you got that 5th-year option, and then you go get the best player in the draft in Abdul Carter. They're better. I think that this staff, and I'm not sold at head coach. I'm sold on the staff. I'm not sold at head coach. But they now have something to sell. We're improving. Going into the draft, if you would have said to me, staff's on the hot seat, I would have had them 1. I don't think so now, Matt. I'm not predicting that they're back, but I think there's enough tools there that I could see a road that they come back. Help me out. Where am I wrong on your G-Men?
No, I think that there is a path there, and I feel like the same thing that you said, because I think when you take a quarterback that high, it leaves the potential for at least 2 years with the staff or 2 years with the head coach because they want to see what they can do with this quarterback. And also the fact that they didn't force a quarterback at 3 and they took the best player available tells me that maybe they felt a little bit less desperate than people may have thought they were. So I do think that there's more of a pathway to a future there with the staff now looking at it than I felt, like you said, before the draft, even coming out of free agency. Now we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. So do you feel like Jackson Dart's going to be your starter at some point this year? I totally do.
I do. I think that, and I think depending on how the season begins, it could be sooner rather than later. Because listen, they're not going to. I do believe that Russell Wilson will start the year unless he gets injured in training camp or something like that. I do believe that Russell Wilson, as long as he's playing competently enough, if they have won some games and they're overachieving and they're hanging around 500, he'll stay as the starter. But I think once he falters or once you start to see some losses pile up, they're going to go to Jackson Dart because they're going to want to see what they have. Because if he's not good enough, Jackson Dart, and the staff gets fired and you have a high pick again, well, then you want the next staff to know what they have so they know if they need to replace him.
I got to tell you, Matt, the G-men to me I don't think like Dallas and like the Raiders, they're bigger than the league. But I do think they're one of those legacy teams, one of those top 5. I don't think you should go to the G-men to learn how to coach. Yes, the Jets, not the G-men. I think the league is better when the G-men are better. But it just, help me here. It almost looks like a shift. There have been so many poor decisions by the Giants as of late that the fact they didn't panic at quarterback at 3, they took the best player in Abdul, and then come back up for the second best quarterback in Jackson Dart. It appears to me that maybe there's been some growth in management. Maybe it's ownership that forced some bad decisions. We don't know. But I'm just saying, it appears to me, though, you can make a case for the G-men, and now they're headed in a direction. They don't seem directionless.
I think there's a point to that because I kind of felt the same way. I think that, and I was somebody who I thought I wanted them to move on from the head coach and GM back in January. I wanted them to give a new regime a fresh start with the number 3 pick. and get their quarterback of the future if they wanted to. Um, but they didn't, and they stuck with these guys. But I do think that there were some signs of competency in the decision making this offseason and signs of a little bit of a plan. And I think the plan to me seemed like, okay, we're better right now defensively. Let's make our defense on paper a legitimate strength. So let's sign defense heavy in free agency. Um, let's get Abdul Carter at number 3, potential game changer there. And let's try to make the defense the strength to keep us in games. And then I think they got their guy at Jackson Dart. So the coach and GM can say that they did have a chance to draft their own quarterback at some point. Now,
Thibodeau,
how does it
are you a
happen?
buyer or seller?
Buyer on Dart or seller?
Thibodeau.
On Thibodeau? I'm leaning towards seller. I'm happy that they kept him this offseason because I want to see how he looks as like the third pass rusher with Brian Burns and Abdul Carter, to see if there's a real role for him there as a guy who can be an impact as a number like 2-3 type. But he hasn't been what they wanted him to be when they took him in 2022. That's for sure.
I'm going to tell you, in defense of the Giants, there were a lot of teams that really liked him.
And Evan Neal too, even. They were highly rated guys. I mean, when that was Joe Schoen's first draft, and when they made those picks on paper, I remember being, excited. Like, okay, they're trying to build up the 2 lines, and this makes sense. And it hasn't worked out the way they wanted.
I agree. All right, he's the great Matt Halatic. Remember, you can follow me on Threads and IG at Hondo SR, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter, and then, of course, always at si.com/NFL/Raiders. Matt, tell them how to find you on social media, please.
You can find me at X/Twitter at Matt Haladik 919, MATTHLADIK 919. Always looking forward to talking ball with everyone over there.
Thanks, Matt.